and John Samuelsen represents the Transportation Workers Union, and Michael Greco represents the union, is the vice president for the union that represents the paramedics and the EMTs. I'm going to start with you, John. For you, I'm sure, to keep up with everything, you've got people who operate buses, people who operate trains, the conductors, you've got mechanics for the airlines, you've got flight attendants on JetBlue. Are people being properly cared for in these jobs? And give me a sense for the effort you're leading to make sure that these people who can't take a day off in many cases, how is that effort working?
So we represent 150,000 or so transport workers in every sector of the transport industry across the country. And we're now months into this fight against COVID-19, and there were so many battles early on that hopefully we've won and we've put them to rest, and we march forward with the proper personal protective equipment and safe workplace practices and whatnot. But that was not the case early on. Early on in this battle, everything was a life or death fight with the employers, whether they be in the public transit industry or throughout other areas of the transport sector. And in fact, the TWU itself is the entity that first gave out protective equipment at New York City Transit and in the airline industry where we represent workers, and in the railroad industry and in transit cities across the country. So it was the union that actually stepped up and got this personal protective equipment out to our members. And as of right now, the fights are almost behind us. The fights right now are about sustaining the victories that we've won previously, and not to underestimate the ability of any employer at any moment to not provide personal protective equipment. We know that can happen, but the fights are largely behind us, we hope, although there are some exceptions to that.
John, what toll has this taken on the people who drive the trains, drive the buses, work on the trains, work on the planes, these essential modes of transportation that just can't stop even with a pandemic that causes self-isolation?
Yeah, well, there's no isolation for transport sector workers. We don't have that luxury. We're out there on the front lines every day, along with all the other essential workers that we're bringing back and forth to work. So no, there's very little isolation for us. And in fact, the pandemic has really taken a massive physical and emotional toll on transport workers across the country. Every day we come to work, and the feeling in the air still now, several weeks, months into this, the feeling is still like the day after the September 11th attacks. There's an ominous, surreal feel in the air. The over 130 MTA workers in New York City have perished due to COVID-19. 112 TWU members across the country in the airline industry, in the transit industry, city by city, have perished. This is a surreal, hopefully once in a lifetime situation. And words can't describe what transit workers go through, what airline workers go through when they put their lives on the line every single day and have to worry about perhaps bringing this virus home to their parents, to their elderly parents, or to their children, or to their spouses. That's really the ultimate worker's nightmare, is bringing a disease home to somebody that you love and infecting them.
What have you seen, John, that's disturbed you most about the conditions in which your members have had to work?
So most disturbing, absolutely for sure, is the flagrant disregard of some employers to not only to the health and welfare of their own workers, their employees, but to the health and welfare of riders of systems. And we've seen that demonstrated many times during this pandemic. And in truth, we've seen the opposite as well. We've seen employers step up and absolutely really do the right thing. In fact, you mentioned JetBlue before, and we represent flight attendants at Southwest and Allegiant as well. But JetBlue was the first employer to work with the union to step up and issue a requirement for facial coverings to get on planes. So we've seen employers do the right thing, but as many times as we've seen them do the right thing, we've seen them do the absolute wrong thing. And one thing in our industry in particular that's been brought into clarity by the pandemic is the difference between privateers that are contracted to run public transit systems and true public sector systems with public sector workers. The privateers are only in this to make a buck. They will expose somebody to harm's way without giving it a thought if it means that they can up their bottom line by a couple of dollars. It's a very unfortunate situation. And going forward, it's something that we're really going to have our mind on, and we're going to work hard at trying to put limitations on what private operators can run public transit, because it's just simply not healthy for society for public transit to be a profit-making industry.
How are the transportation authorities, some are government, some are private, as you mentioned, doing when it comes to keeping the planes, the buses, the trains clean? There's been a massive effort here in New York City, as you know, to sanitize the subways. Metro North, the trains that go between the suburbs and the city, there's been a big effort there. The planes, I flew on Sunday from Detroit to LaGuardia. I'm guessing that that plane, that A320, has never been cleaner in the last 3 or 4 months it's been in service. Are we winning on that angle there?
I believe we are winning. I believe that the employers know, whether they be private sector or public sector, whether they be airlines or transit or Amtrak for that matter, they know that in order to bring riders back into the system, in order for passengers to start flying again, there needs to be a confidence among the passengers that the passenger carrier is doing everything they can to keep the planes clean and the trains clean. And I think that the systems are a lot cleaner than they were just a few short months ago. And these decontamination efforts, these disinfection efforts have to be enshrined permanently as we go forward. If the systems fall back into a state of uncleanliness, the riders will stop riding. And those are the cold, hard facts that this is the new reality in COVID-19 for employers in the transport sector.
Is it safe for people to take trains, buses, and airplanes as we speak here tonight?
I believe it is. I believe that as long as common sense public health guidelines are followed, both in the system and in the workplaces for the workers, and as long as proper personal protective equipment is given out to transit workers, airline workers, and the systems are routinely decontaminated and disinfected, that we will have gone a long way toward improving the safety of the system and making it safe for folks to migrate back into the subway and to once again begin flying. So that's our goal. We share that goal with the employees. We want to see these industries come back. We want to see them thrive and be the solid area for blue collar workers to go for careers. And that's not going to happen unless the new reality is embraced by the employers.
As crippling as this has been physically, emotionally, economically, could some good come out of this? And what do you hope happens next for your people?
I think there is some good that has come out of this, and certainly in the midst of protecting workers during this pandemic, workers joining together collectively and defending themselves against employers that thought nothing of giving instructions that would put them in harm's way. So I think certainly a good thing is that workers across this country have come to understand that when they lock arms and stand together, they can defend their health and safety. They can defend their livelihoods. And that's going to lead to an emboldened workforce in America. And in my mind, that's certainly a good thing. Rather have not gone through this pandemic, obviously. But one of those, I guess, outcomes at the end of the pandemic is that there's going to be an uptick in union organizing and union membership. And it's cold comfort, but nonetheless, that is a reality. For all the strike action and threats of strike action that went on in the midst of this pandemic to defend workers, workers will come out stronger.
I, like many other Americans, will get on a plane at the end of this week, if not probably in the next 2 weeks. We're going to have to make decisions about getting on trains, buses. You know, for a lot of people, especially here in New York, that's the only way to get around. In Detroit, a few weeks ago, I was there when saw a bus driver died of COVID-19 after a passenger sneezed on the bus driver. He did a Facebook video on it. What should people know as they try to get back into some sense of normalcy with mass transit flying?
Transit workers have really, in the most profound way, put their lives on the line. Transport workers in general have put their lives on the line. There's hundreds of deaths by transit workers and transport workers across the country who have embraced our obligation to deliver essential workers to the front lines of this fight against COVID-19. And that respect should be given, and as well to all the other frontline workers. And also, you talk about hope and thankfulness, and I'm thankful today because this has been the first day in quite some time where a fatality hasn't been reported out to me within the Transport Workers Union, and that I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for this new surreal world we live in, that when I wake up and then go to bed at night and a fatality hasn't been reported to me, it's been a good day.
Did you ever think, John, that in all your tenure, it would be a good day just because there was not one single fatality in your tens of thousands of people you represent?
No, never. And you know, many of us, particularly from New York City, lived through the World Trade Center attacks, and at the time said there'll never be another event like this. And I'm through in my life with saying this is a once in a lifetime, or there'll never be another one like this, because this is so unexpected. It came out of left field, and it has wiped out families. It's wiped out workers, and it's an unseen enemy. It's not even like the zombie apocalypse where you can actually see what you're fighting. This is an unseen enemy, and it's what makes it so scary. And folks have perished by an enemy that they weren't even able to lay eyes upon, and that itself is very scary.